At the center of the world, monsters dwell on the White Snowfield. There are monsters like the white serpent that devour glaciers. There is a gray bear that causes earthquakes. There is even the vile rat that pollutes the seas. In all of these, an emperor returned alive from the White Snowfield and said the most dangerous thing isn't the monsters. In the White Snowfield, barbarians are seen running around, taking out monsters and eating them for snacks. Among them is our MC, Katal, and he seems to be the only one with higher intelligence. Katal always tried to lecture his fellow comrades on some of the dangers of eating poisonous creatures, but these dudes don't care. Katal then narrates how he never wanted to live amongst clueless and savage barbarians. Katal's entire idea was to go to a fantasy world, which is a world of magic and wonder. Because of this, he quits his boring job and goes on a journey. He climbed the tallest mountain on Earth, reached the Earth's core. He even traveled to the southernmost point on the planet. However, he found nothing. He realized that reality is very far from fantasy. However, he didn't give up, and every night he prayed that he would wake up in the middle of a fantasy world. And then one day, Ketal's prayers were answered. Now, in the White Snowfield, a caravan carrying important goods is passing through, and it is being guarded by a bunch of mercenaries. The mercenaries are hit with so much cold that some of them start to complain that the risk isn't worth the reward. Sitting in one of the couches is Melina of the House Akasha, and she is accompanied by her butler. The butler asks Melina how she is feeling, and she assures the butler that she is fine while the mercenaries outside are complaining of the cold. The butler talks trash about the mercenaries, but Melina tells him not to, since they are the only ones willing to risk guarding them through the supposedly dangerous White Snowfield. The butler then asks Melina if she knows what resides in the snowfield, and she says, monsters. The legends once talked about an emperor who wanted to control the whole world, and he also wanted to conquer the White Snowfield. Because of this, he led every strong fighter and soldier he had into the snowfield. A few years after this, his empire comes crashing down since its ruler is nowhere to be found. Later on, the emperor returned, but all of his soldiers were gone. He looked really old, and he spoke from a place of horror. The emperor came out with the popular saying that the most dangerous thing in the snowfield is not the monsters, but the barbarians that reside there. The butler believes that this is nothing but a legend. However, Melina begs to differ since the emperor's words carried weight, and most of the creatures that he described were later discovered. However, no one has ever claimed to see a barbarian except for the emperor. Suddenly, the carriage comes to a halt. The mercenaries spot something in the distance, but it doesn't seem clear to them yet. The captain of the mercenaries tells his soldiers to prepare themselves in anticipation. Just then, the unidentified object moves closer to them, and the image of a towering giant man appears right in front of them. His face looked scary, and he finally opened his mouth to talk. It turns out to be our MC, and he reveals that he got tired of the other barbarians, which is why he came for a stroll. Ketal is surprised to have run into outsiders in the snowfield, and he attributes it to luck. Ketal offers his greetings to the mercenaries, and he quickly figures out that they are guarding the caravan. He wants to suggest that they turn back, but he knows that they won't. While he is speaking, the mercenaries are too stunned to speak as they are trying to process what it is that is standing in front of them. Just then, Katal asks the captain if their employer is in the caravan. He reveals his wishes to be hired just like the mercenaries too. The mercenaries immediately raise their arms against Katal, but then he makes himself clear. He lets them know that he is willing to help them cross the snowfield. The captain is surprised that Katal the barbarian is not hostile toward them, but in fact asking for work. Katal assures the captain that if he meant to do harm, they would all be dead already. The captain reluctantly asks Melina what she wants to do regarding Katal's request. Melina wants to know what will happen if they fight Katal, and the captain lets her know that fighting Katal seems to be out of their options. After weighing what the captain said, Melina agrees to hire Katal. The captain then walks over to Katal to tell him the lady's decision. Katal is glad to hear this, and he walks toward the caravan. The mercenaries have the intention to stop him, but their bodies won't because of the overwhelming aura emanating from Katal. Katal tells the mercenaries that he only wants to speak with Melina. One of the mercenaries wants to protest against this, but the captain reminds them that Melina already approved of it. In addition to this, the captain is wise enough to know that they don't even have what it takes to stop Katal. Katal reaches the caravan, and he asks to come in. The butler almost pisses his pants when Melina tells Katal to enter. Upon entering the caravan, Katal tells the butler to calm his nerves because he has no intentions of harming him. Katal says this while pushing the butler to the caravan walls with his big body. Melina is stunned as she cannot believe that the legendary barbarian is sitting in front of her. The two offer their greetings, and Katal mentions how warm it is inside the caravan. He reveals his surprise that the caravan can retain its warmth through the harsh cold weather in the snowfield. Melina then reveals that this is made possible because of magic. Katal doesn't look surprised as he already knows that this might be the reason. Katal then tells Melina that their chances of passing through the snowfield with mercenaries are quite low. However, he is going to protect them, but he has just one condition. Melina asks him what he wants, and he reveals that he wants information about the outside world. He wants to know what is going on outside the snowfield. Melina is shocked to hear this, but since she is not losing anything and in fact, she has no choice, she assures Katal that she will tell him what he wants to know. Since they will be working together, the two finally exchange names. Apparently, Katal just woke up one day to find himself as a barbarian in the snowfield. He didn't have the time to figure out why this happened to him. The only things that existed there were the terrible cold and ridiculously strong monsters. He is the leader of a tribe in the snowfield, and they hunt to survive. Without realizing it, countless years passed. He tried many times to get out of the snowfield, but there was an apparent system that prevented him from leaving. The system informs Katal that he can only leave when he has completed all the quests. He was about to give up on everything when the Emperor and his men showed up. He wondered why humans would willingly come to a place as terrible as the White Snowfield. This was when he realized that the world outside the snowfield is a world of fantasy and magic that he had so much wanted to visit. Once he figured out this truth, Katal began taking the quest seriously. He hunted down giant lizards and monsters that the quests gave to him. He continued doing this, believing that one day he would get the chance to leave the snowfield. However, until then, he plans to gather information about the outside world, and this is why he is talking to Melina. Katal is glad that Melina is calm, unlike most humans that he has met in the past. Most people he met in the past were violent, but talking to Melina gives him the sense that he is having a conversation with a civilized person. Katal then asks Melina if the caravan is moving weapons. Melina is shocked by the question, and she asks Katal how he knows. Katal replies that he can hear the sound of sharp steel from the wagons, which makes it easy to figure out. He then asks if there is a war on the outside, to which she says yes. Apparently, the Empire and the Kingdom are currently at war. Katal is not totally surprised that even the outside world is not entirely peaceful. Melina reveals that the Empire is currently controlling the battlefield, but the Kingdom is still trying its best to hold out. The Kingdom's Swordmasters and heroes are protecting the border to keep things at bay. Katal hears about Swordmasters, and he immediately becomes interested. He asks Melina what sort of power the Swordmasters are using. Melina then asks him if he knows about mysticism, but he says no. Melina explains that a power called mysticism exists in the world. Apparently, only a few can use or even sense the power. These few are granted one of the 5 ranks of strength. There is the 3rd rank. These are people who can sense the power of mysticism. The 2nd rank is those who can use the power of mysticism. The 1st rank is those who can materialize the power of mysticism into mana or aura. People like knights and wizards usually belong to the 1st rank. However, there are those who have transcended the rankings. These are the people who can dominate mysticism and use it freely. They are capable of doing very powerful things, and this is the rank that the Swordmaster belongs to. And when talking about the heroes, they are far beyond everything else. They are basically an influence on the world itself. Melina considers the heroes beings that are out of this world. After hearing everything that Melina has to say, Katal wonders how long he has been trapped in the snowfield. At this point, he doesn't really care again. He just wants to get out of the snowfield and reach the outside world, which is the fantasy world that he has been longing for. Melina then asks Katal if he is a barbarian, to which he says yes. Melina reveals that there is a legend about the barbarians. This shocks Katal as he never knew that something like this existed. He realized that the Emperor must have been the one who went out to spread such. Katal then moves past the legend talk, and he talks about the large number of weapons being moved by Melina. He asks Melina if there is a particular reason for them to go through the snowfield, to which Melina replies that her family needs a whole load of money. Katal asks her why, and she explains that her family has been in the commercial industry for quite a while. However, they are currently in debt because their rivals found a way to sabotage them. The expedition Melina is embarking on is one that would prevent the total collapse of the family. Katal is impressed by this, and he mentions that they are selling weapons to the kingdom. Melina is shocked, and she asks Katal how he knows this. Katal reminds her that she previously mentioned that the Empire is winning the war, which means they don't need a resupply of weapons. Since the supply of weapons is low, the demand would be high. In return, the price would be high, and because of the situation, Katal figures out that the weapons would be of high value. For them to even be going through the risky snowfield, Katal knows that it is quite valuable. Katal then asks if there is no other way to reach the kingdom without passing the snowfield, and Melina says yes. Melina is shocked by everything she has seen so far, since everything she heard about barbarians is the fact that they are uneducated and they are a bunch of savages. She wonders if Katal is truly a barbarian, and just then, the carriage runs into a bit of a problem. The carriage has run into a black slime, leaving them scared. Katal is the only person sitting comfortably in the caravan without any sense of fear. Melina tells him about the records that are being kept concerning dangerous monsters in the snowfield. There are strong adventurers who have entered the snowfield in the past, but little made it out alive. Out of those few are the ones who left records of the monsters that they encountered. Among the said creatures is the black slime. Melina asks Katal if he knows about the black slime, and he says yes. However, Katal considers them to be snacks and nothing really dangerous. Melina is shocked when she hears that Katal eats the black slimes. He then suggests that they catch some so that they can eat, but she immediately refuses. The moment Melina sees that the black slime is posing a threat to the mercenaries, she starts to scream at Katal for help. However, Katal refuses to move, telling Melina that he is not going to act unless they come across something that poses an actual danger to them. He tells Melina that the mercenaries should be able to handle the black slime. In addition to this, he wants to gauge the level of strength between the mercenaries. Realizing that Katal is not coming to help, the captain of the mercenaries starts screaming out orders for his men. He sets up a formation for those who would play defense, and then orders some of his men to attack. They manage to hit the black slime, but it doesn't do much damage. The captain has a bit of experience under his belt, and he tells his men to scatter and coordinate themselves since the black slime can only move in straight lines. The mercenaries follow the instructions of their captain, and in a coordinated attack, they are able to hurt the black slime. The mercenaries refuse to back down and only keep the attack going. The captain tells his men to attack the slime and try to look for its core. After some minutes of battling the black slime, they are able to reach the core and destroy it, ultimately defeating the black slime. An echo of victory rises among the mercenaries. They are glad that they managed to take down the scary monster without sustaining any casualties. However, Katal sits in the caravan, totally unimpressed. Not long after this, they run into another monster, a wolf this time around. The mercenaries carry the morale from their last battle into this, and they are able to easily take down the beast. After taking down their latest beast, the mercenaries start getting cocky, believing that the monsters in the snowfield are not that scary. However, the captain tells his men not to let down their guard since they have not even made it halfway through the snowfield. Whispers start spreading among the mercenaries as they wonder if Katal is really strong or if he is just lying. They are also mad that he hasn't done anything to protect them since he joined them. In fact, they believe that he is the one tagging along so that they can protect him. Some of the mercenaries believe that it would be much better if they could verify his strength. The mercenaries soon take their complaint to Melina. They talked about how they have risked their lives, but Katal has done nothing. They tell Melina that they would like to verify whether Katal is strong or if he is just messing with them. Melina is confused as she doesn't know what method the mercenaries plan to use in verifying if Katal is strong. The captain apologizes on behalf of his men, telling the lady that he tried to stop them, but he couldn't. Katal soon learns about the mercenaries' complaint. He then tells them that there is no time to verify his strength yet because they have just received an unwanted visitor. The mercenaries believe that Katal is just messing around until they turn to see a giant and scary snake standing behind them. The snake is determined to make a meal out of the humans, making it very dangerous. The presence of the snake petrifies the mercenaries. Just then, Katal speaks to the snake, telling the snake to back off because the humans are under his protection. However, the snake remains stubborn, trying to remind Katal of the rules guarding the snowfield. Katal urges the snake to mind its business, but the snake refuses to back down. The snake raises its head, ready to strike, and this is when Katal loses it. He decides that a good beating will get the snake back to its senses. He approaches the snake, and with just a single punch, he is able to make the snake scream for its life. The hit from Katal's punch leaves a shockwave in the area. The snake passes out from Katal's strike, but Katal decides to finish it off since it refused to heed his warning. With just one more hit that showcases how dangerous Katal is, he finishes off the beast. After he is done beating the snake to death, the mercenaries all turn to Katal, asking him to forgive them for acting all stupid. Katal acts petty toward them, but the journey continues. The butler then joins the mercenaries outside, leaving Katal with Melina. Katal then asks Melina why someone who seems to be of importance, like her, is the one running such a dangerous errand for her family. Melina reveals that she is the first daughter of her mother, who is her father's mistress. Her mother is a second wife who came for a political marriage but was used and abandoned. Apparently, Melina and her mother hold no real significance in the family. They are basically nothing, and because of this, they are treated like servants. Melina further adds that she volunteered to go on the mission. Melina admits that the mission is quite dangerous, but someone needed to set an example. After hearing Melina's story, Katal concludes that she is clever. In addition to this, he believes that she is ambitious. Not long after this, they arrive at the end of the snowfield. They all thank Katal for his assistance. Katal then asks Melina how they plan to return, and she reveals that they are going to go through the Empire since they will no longer be carrying weapons. Melina then asks Katal why he called her a clever and ambitious person. Katal tells the lady that this is exactly what he means. Since her family is losing their status and they are in debt, Katal figures out that Melina is using the opportunity to be her family's savior. Even though she is the daughter of the second wife, the people will obviously trust and follow her. Katal has been able to piece together that Melina is trying to seize real power in the family. After hearing everything Katal has to say, Melina confesses that he is not wrong. Melina is shocked at how a barbarian like Katal is so clever. It dawns on Melina that having Katal by her side would actually mean a lot. Melina then offers Katal the chance to follow her out of the snowfield, but Katal declines the offer, telling Melina that he still has some things that he needs to sort out. Melina is disappointed, but she decides to give Katal her family's crest. She tells him to look for the Akasha family if he ever decides to come outside and show them the treasure. Katal gladly accepts the gift and hopes that they all meet again someday. Melina and her entourage ride off, and Katal returns to the snowfield to take on the quests given to him. 5 years later, Katal finally meets all the conditions set, and he completes the quest. The system informs him that he can finally leave the snowfield. With excitement, Katal takes his first step out of the snowfield into the fantasy world that he has always wanted to visit. Katal steps into the woods, and he takes in all the scents of animals, flowers, trees, and other things made of nature that he didn't have when he was in the snowfield. Katal takes one last look at the snowfield, and he declares that he is never coming back to it. He is finally in the fantasy world that he dreamed of, which he never thought he would reach. Even though everything went wrong from the start, Katal doesn't mind. He has made it to the fantasy world, and he is ready to enjoy himself. He is looking forward to seeing swords, magic, dragons, and elves. He looks further into the forest and feels human presence coming from there. Katal assumes that he is close to a village, and he excitedly walks in that direction. As he approaches the location, he is stuck between what sort of greeting he should go with. Not being able to come to a decision, Katal decides that he is just going to act like a gentleman. Meanwhile, the presence that Katal felt was a bunch of elves finally settling into the environment. An elf elder tells his people to unpack their things and get ready to make the area their home. One of the elves asks the elder if the area is really safe for them, and the elder says yes. He reveals that they are in an extremely remote area that humans rarely come to. This is because the snowfield is close to them, and the elders assure the elves that they have nothing to worry about when it comes to the snowfield. There have not been any reports of anything coming out of the snowfield in thousands of years, so he assures them that they are safe. To be safer, they have set up a barrier around the area. It is a concealment spell that hides the presence of the elves and makes the place look like an ordinary forest. The elder elf reveals that they spent months putting together while following ancient elven magic that they managed to recover. He is confident that no outsider will be able to reach them as long as the barrier holds. However, in a rare case that monsters come attacking, the elder elf is confident that the elf queen will take care of the problem really easily since she is pretty powerful. At the same time, Katal is walking toward the settlement, and he accidentally cuts through the barrier without even realizing it. He continues walking until he runs into an elf child who wandered away from the settlement. Katal is immediately blown away just by the sight of an elf. He considers himself a lucky person since elves are considered to be a rare race. Just then, the elven child also notices the towering image standing above her. Katal waves his hand to the kid, but she immediately passes out in fear. Katal picks up the girl and decides to return her to the village. Katal is confident that the elves will welcome him with open arms since they are considered to be a peaceful race. Katal arrives at the village only to receive a hostile welcome. The elves are thrown into disarray as they wonder how Katal broke through the barrier. Even the elven elder is surprised to see a human, since the entire area is supposed to be forbidden for humans. The elves soon figure out that Katal has caused a crack in the barrier. The elves start to pee their pants because their queen is not home. She went to scout the area. Katal tries telling the elves that he is not their enemy, but none of them is ready to hear what he has to say. The elves believe that Katal and other humans have come to attack them just like they always do. Katal finally realizes that the elves see him as a kidnapper. He plans to clear the misunderstanding, and to do this, he returns the elven kid he is carrying in his hand. The child turns back to look at Katal, and she only sees the same scary image from before. She runs toward her people in tears. Katal then speaks to the elves, pointing out that he has returned the child, which shows that he is not their enemy. However, this doesn't work as the elven leader orders the elves to attack Katal since the kid has returned to them safely. The elves fire arrows at Katal, leaving him to wonder if the elves are even trying to listen to what he has to say. As the elves attack, Katal reveals his disappointment. With what he heard, he believes that elves are supposed to be gentle, but he realizes that reality is quite different from fairy tales. He figures out that the elves have gotten aggressive because only the fittest win the game of survival. All the elven attacks fail to penetrate Katal's skin, but they keep attacking, believing that he must have a limit. Realizing that the elves are not ready to calm down, Katal claps his hands, releasing a massive shockwave. The shockwave throws the elves in different directions and also leaves a deep crater where Katal is standing. The elf elder is shocked to see this as he wonders just what sort of monster Katal is. Katal realizes that he misjudged his strength, but then he tells the elf leader that he is not an enemy to the elves. Suddenly, a massive fiery arrow hits Katal from behind. The arrow hits Katal on the head, engulfing him in fire. The attack came from the elven queen, Marsaria. The queen demands to know what happened, and the elf leader claims that they were attacked by a human. Marsaria concludes that the area is also not safe for them. Just when the smoke clears, Marsaria and the other elves are left in total shock to see that Katal is still standing. The elder elf wonders how Katal is able to take Marsaria's direct blow and doesn't die. Without hearing from Katal, the queen concludes that Katal is there to hurt them. She prepares to fire another arrow at Katal. Katal wonders why none of the elves are acknowledging what he is trying to tell them, even though they are all speaking the same language. Since the elves are not ready to hear what he has to say, he plans to beat it into them. Marsaria fires her arrow, but Katal punches it back at her. Katal misjudges his strength again, and it almost ends the queen's life. The arrow misses her but destroys everything behind her. Marsaria realizes that the foe she is going up against is pretty strong. She wonders why someone as powerful as Katal is in the area. She immediately orders the elves to run away from the area. The elves adhere to the queen's instructions, and they all make a run for it. The queen then faces Katal, telling him that he will never achieve his sinister goal. Katal is shocked because all he wants to do is talk. The queen then resorts to the last thing she can do when her homeland is threatened. She speaks some chants and summons a giant fiery bull. Katal doesn't feel threatened by this, but he is rather impressed. He realizes that the bull with horns ablaze in flames standing in front of him is a spirit, and this is something straight out of fantasy. Marsaria then orders the bull to annihilate Katal. The bull, Fiego, complains about the summoning, but Marsaria tells it to shut its mouth. Apparently, Fiego is a high-ranking fire spirit that holds flame in its horns. The stronger the spirit, the older and more boastful they get. Marsaria admits that she wouldn't have been able to summon a high-ranking fire spirit like Fiego, but she got help from another tribe, and she barely succeeded in forming the contract. Marsaria then orders Fiego to fulfill his contract. Fiego takes a good look at who he is supposed to annihilate, and he wonders if Katal is even human. Even though Fiego is doubtful, he still has to fulfill his contract. He decides that he is going to burn Katal to ashes. He charges toward Katal, leaving destruction in his wake. Surprisingly, Katal grabs Fiego's horn with just one hand. Fiego almost breaks apart when this happens. Katal admits that he is impressed by seeing a spirit, but at the same time, he doesn't mind beating it to death. Katal hits Fiego with a single punch, throwing him several meters away, while also splitting in half. Fiego splitting in half leaves massive destruction where it lands. When this happens, Marsaria falls to her knees in despair. She has done everything in her power, but couldn't leave a scratch on Katal. Katal walks toward her and she begs that her people be spared. Standing tall and confident, Katal says what he has been saying since the beginning. He tells Marsaria that he is not her enemy, nor is he an enemy of the elves. Marsaria is shocked to hear this, and after a bunch of conversation, the elves finally accept the truth. Marsaria and the elves apologize to Katal for judging too quickly. Katal then assures Marsaria that he understands her situation since she said they were driven to the remote area by humans. He is only sad that the elves didn't hear him out before attacking him. Katal then reveals that it is his first time seeing an elf since there are no elves in the White Snowfield. Marsaria is shocked when she realizes that Katal is from the Snowfield where it is said that humans can't survive. Marsaria then reveals her worry. She asks Katal if there are others who can come from the Snowfield too. Katal assures Marsaria that the possibility of someone or any monster coming out of the Snowfield is very unlikely because there are rules in the Snowfield that even powerful beasts like dragons cannot afford to break. He knows that his escape from the Snowfield is nothing but an exception. Marsaria is relieved to hear this. Katal then asks her about Fiego since it got split in half. The queen assures Katal that he has nothing to worry about. Since the spirits are beings of nature, Fiego would just return to the spirit realm through reverse summoning. Since she was rude to Katal, she asks him if there is anything that he wants. She promises Katal that whatever he asks for, she is going to grant it. Katal then asks Marsaria if it is possible for humans to form contracts with spirits. The queen reveals that this is not possible, but there are some humans who have become one with nature, and these humans can form contracts with spirits. Marsaria then thinks it over again, and she tells Katal to head to a place called Elfo Sagrado if he wants to form a contract with a spirit. Elfo Sagrado is where the elven divine beings live, and it is considered to be the sacred land of elves. Marsaria tells Katal that what he wants might be possible at Elfo Sagrado. Katal wonders if a human like him can go to the elven sanctuary. Marsaria admits that humans can't get there, but with her permission, Katal will be able to. Marsaria promises to give Katal the location of Elfo Sagrado, but urges him to keep it safe since some vile humans will do anything to reach there. Elves have never revealed the location to other races, but for some reason, the queen trusts Katal with the location. Marsaria conjures what seems to be a GPS tracker for Katal. She tells him to take it with him, and it will lead him to Elfo Sagrado. However, she lets him know that he will be tested by the elven divine beings. Not that Marsaria is worried about this because she is very confident that Katal will pass. Marsaria wishes him luck on his journey, and after exchanging names, Katal leaves. With just a leap, Katal clears a great distance in the forest. Katal continues at this incredible speed, and in no time, he reaches the border of the Barkan territory, which is in the kingdom of Gehenthra. The guards sense that something is approaching, causing them to panic. When Katal finally emerges from the forest, the guards are left in absolute disbelief. With a calm and happy face, Katal offers his greetings to the guards. The guards are still stunned, and it soon dawns on them that the dude standing in front of them is a barbarian. He walks toward the guards, but they immediately raise their arms at him. They threaten to attack if he comes any closer. Katal urges the guards to calm down because he is not their enemy. The guard captain then asks Katal what he wants from them. Katal points at the city walls, then lets the guards know that he would like to visit their territory. The guards are left in a state of shock as they find it difficult to give Katal an answer. When the captain finally pulls himself together, Katal is taken into private so that he can be interrogated. The captain asks him how long he plans to stay in the city, and Katal sincerely tells the captain that he doesn't have an idea. He then asks for his name and identity. Katal reveals his name, but for identification, he doesn't have. Just then, he remembers the piece that Melina gave him 5 years ago. He brings it out and hands it over to the captain. The captain is confused as he doesn't know what the jewelry is. Katal then explains that it is the Akasha family's crest. He mentions that he received it from a descendant of the Akasha family. When the captain hears this, he realizes that the Akasha family is the merchant family from the kingdom of Denian. Apparently, the family has started gaining influence in recent times, and this was after the head of the family was replaced some years back. Katal then asks the guard if the crest is enough to confirm his identity. The guard hesitates to answer, and Katal asks him if the crest is not from the kingdom. The guard explains that the crest is from the Denian kingdom, but they are currently in the kingdom of Gehenthra. The guard tells Katal that the crest is not a confirmation, but at least it is helpful. He lets Katal know that he can enter the city, but there is a condition that he needs to meet. Apparently, they need confirmation that Katal is not dangerous. The captain informs Katal that he will join a party. There are 3 other people who are trying to enter the territory, and Katal will form a party with them. Katal and his party will then clear the dungeon, which is close to the territory. Without hesitation, Katal accepts the condition. The guard then mentions that Katal would have to tell them everything that happened while clearing the dungeon. Katal immediately figures out the captain's game plan. Apparently, he is making people with no identities gather information about each other so he can then use this to filter out the suspicious or good people. Katal is impressed with the guard's way of doing things. The captain asks Katal if he is truly a barbarian, to which he says yes. The captain then stops the conversation and suggests that they get going. Meanwhile, the other 3 guys are in the waiting room. There is the self-proclaimed holy knight, Tyrannus. There is also the thief, Kasan. These two seem to have a beef of unknown origin with each other. They continue insulting each other and are even about to fight before the third member of the group steps in. She is a priest of Colossia, and her name is Hayes. The trio is waiting for the fourth member of the party, and they all hope that the last person is normal. Just then, the guard announces the arrival of the fourth person. The door opens, and the giant Katal enters the room. The atmosphere in the room immediately changes with the trio left in shock. Katal breaks the silence in the room as he addresses the group. The trio still finds it hard to say anything as they all wonder if Katal is even human because of how big he is and the amount of pressure coming from his body. The captain leaves, closes the door behind him, and tells the group that he will be back after they are done with introductions. Katal is the first to get down to introductions, leaving the others no choice but to follow suit. Katal is interested in Tyrannus, who claims that he is a holy knight. Katal asks him if he can use holy power, and Tyrannus manages to lie his way out of the situation. When Hayes introduces herself, she reveals that she is serving Colossia, the god of lies and deception. Hayes is not really proud to reveal her profession since the god she is serving is not really popular with the people and for obvious reasons. Moments later, the captain returns to the room, telling the group to prepare themselves. The party members are led to the entrance of the dungeon. The dungeon is a 3-floor dungeon, and the monsters in the dungeon are the undead. Their goal is to clear the dungeon and find the emblem. Before they enter the dungeon, Kasan decides to take the leader and create a formation for them to follow. He tells Katal and Tyrannus that they will be the ones to stay up front while he checks for traps. And for Hayes, she is going to be behind them, providing support for them. After laying down his plan, everyone believes that it is all right, and they all decide to follow it. With this, the party enters the dungeon. Upon entering, they notice how dark the dungeon is. Kasan observes the area but finds no traces of traps. He is surprised that the dungeon looks suspiciously ordinary. Just then, they run into bones scattered all over the floor. Kasan immediately stops their advance, pointing out that the bone fragments are monsters. He reveals that the bones will rise into skeletons and attack if they go any closer. Kasan then figures out that the dungeon wasn't for checking the party's sincerity, but it was there to get rid of any suspicious outsiders trying to enter the territory. Katal immediately becomes interested in the skeletons. Kasan further explains that the skeletons are dangerous monsters because they can continue moving even after they have lost their limbs. In addition to this, their defense is quite strong since they are made of bones. Kasan points out that the dungeon is more dangerous than he anticipated. He orders Hayes to get her divine powers read. He also tells Tyrannus to get his shield up, and he urges Katal to also be ready. Kasan continues with his plan. He tells the group that he is going to aim for openings once the fight begins. Since skeleton bodies move even when they have been broken down, he suggests that they aim for the neck. Because of how tough the skeletons are, Kasan says they will have to hit them multiple times. Katal acknowledges all of Kasan's plans and commends him for being a good leader. Just then, Katal walks toward the skeleton that has already come together. The skeleton is armed with a sword, and while Katal is staring at it in amusement, the others are preparing their battle weapons. Suddenly, Katal slaps the skeleton, and it turns to dust. The other party members are horrified when they see this. As if he didn't do anything spectacular, Katal turns back to look at his stunned teammates. He agrees with Kasan, saying the skeletons really do not move again once their head is gone. However, Kasan is too shocked to even say a word. What he meant was something else entirely. Skeletons are made of bone, and the skeleton's bones are also made from really hard and unusual material. A skilled swordsman will find it hard to cut down a skeleton in 2 strikes. In addition to this, the skeletons are strengthened by the dungeon's magic. Because of this, the only way to defeat a skeleton is to attack the neck multiple times, just like cutting down a tree. With what Kasan knows, it is basically impossible to blow off a skeleton's neck and turn it into powder. Kasan can easily see that Katal is strong, but he never thought it was up to the level he witnessed. Kasan starts to wonder if Katal is really human. Katal finally kicks some life into the room again when he suggests that they keep moving. In unison, the trio agrees, and they all follow Katal. When Katal notices that they are rushing, he urges them not to rush, and they all obey as if he is their commander. With what they witnessed, they start praying that they don't die at Katal's hands. Shortly afterward, they run into skeletons again. Kasan and the others are preparing to strike when Katal asks them for a favor. He tells them to hold off while he deals with the skeletons himself, because there is something he needs to check. Without argument, the trio agrees to Katal's proposal. Katal thanks them and then walks toward the skeleton while his party members wonder what is going on in his head. Katal stares at the skeleton in amusement, wondering what sort of structure it possesses. The skeleton swings its sword at Katal, but he catches the tip and breaks it off. Katal then waits for the skeleton's next course of action. The skeleton still swings at Katal with its broken sword, and this time, Katal grabs the skeleton's right limb. Katal breaks off the limb and crushes it. He then waits to see what the skeleton wants to do again. Once the skeleton realizes that it is missing its right limb, it switches the sword to its left limb. Katal is impressed by this, and as the skeleton rushes toward him, Katal grabs the left limb and crushes it too. The skeleton is now without its forelimbs, but it still tries to take a swing at Katal. Katal crushes everything to the base as he figures out that the skeleton possesses intelligence. Meanwhile, his teammates are sweating really hard as they can't believe that Katal is toying around with a monster that they consider to be very dangerous. The trio agrees in unison that the dude standing in front of them is truly a barbarian. After he is done playing with the skeleton, Katal apologizes to his teammates for the holdup, but they all tell him that he is free to do whatever it is that he wants to do. Katal suggests that they keep moving forward, and they all comply with no argument. In no time, they reach the second floor. Kasan suggests that they take a rest, and after thinking about it, Katal agrees. Kasan and the other two are glad that he agreed to this, and they immediately sit down to catch their breath. Katal then tells the trio that he has some questions about the dungeon. He apologizes for his lack of knowledge when it comes to the dungeons, but Hayes cuts in, assuring Katal that his quest to know more is a good thing. Hayes asks him what he is curious about, and he mentions the fact that the dungeon is so close to the human territory. He wants to know if monsters don't attack people. Hayes replies that the dungeon monsters do not come outside to attack people. However, there are sometimes exceptions, but in these cases, they are checked and taken care of before they get out of hand. Kasan then adds that dungeons occur naturally. Sometimes they occur in the form of a cave, while others appear in the form of towers. They also appear close to where there is a large settlement of people. Whenever the dungeon appears, the territory in charge checks the danger levels, and then people like Katal, who are outsiders or mercenaries, enter to clear the dungeon. Katal then asks if the dungeons appear inside settlements, but they say no. It only appears outside of the territories. He also asks if there is a reward for clearing the dungeons, and they say yes. There is usually a boss on the last floor that, if defeated, gives loads of rewards. After hearing all of this, Katal compares it to a game. Kasan hears him and asks him what he means by game, but lets Kasan know that he was just talking to himself. Katal then asks one more question. He asks them who makes the dungeons, shocking the trio. Hayes tells Katal that the dungeons appear naturally, so that they are not made by anyone, but Katal begs to differ. He mentions the fact that the dungeons appear near places where there are many people. The dungeons appear near where people live and then lure them with rewards. Katal believes that the dungeons are man-made because of the way they operate. Hayes is shocked to hear this, and she starts thinking over the possibility that Katal might actually be right. Kasan also thinks about it, and he realizes that he never questioned the origin of the dungeons since everyone considers it to be an obvious principle. Kasan is shocked that a barbarian like Katal can appear and starts questioning what people like them have believed for years. Because of this, Kasan concludes that Katal is not a normal barbarian. Minutes later, Katal suggests that they keep moving, believing that they have all had enough rest. None of them can disagree with this as they immediately start moving. Not long after this, they find a treasure chest, which is one of the rewards in the dungeon. Kasan mentions that they are free to take it if they can unlock the chest. Kasan then has an internal monologue with himself, talking about how hard it is to unlock a chest of that level. With the type of chest that he is looking at, he believes that it is going to take a thief of high expertise to unlock. Kasan concludes in his head that they would have to give up on the treasure chest. Just then, Katal asks him to unlock it. Kasan is shocked when he hears this, reminding Katal that they are staring at a treasure chest. Katal replies that he is not blind, and since Kasan is a thief, it is his job to unlock it. Kasan knows that Katal is right, but there is a problem. He doesn't have the skills to unlock a chest with this level of protection because if he did, he would be ranked high among the thieves. However, Kasan is scared to death to tell Katal the truth that he is arse at being a thief. He believes that Katal will just kill him if he fails. Scared of what might happen, Kasan proceeds to give it a try. While unlocking the chest, Kasan can see Katal staring at him from behind, and he figures out that it is a game of life or death for him. The moment he fails, he assumes that he is done for. Kasan starts to rack his head. He thinks about all the times he has followed his boss on a raid. He replays everything in his head, trying to find a way through. Since his life depends on it, Kasan puts his all into trying to unlock the chest. After some minutes of working on the chest, Kasan finally unlocks it, and he couldn't be happier or relieved. Every member of the party is impressed with Hayes talking about how only skilled thieves unlock the treasure chests. She is glad that she got to see it in person. Katal also praises Kasan, telling him that he did a good job. To Kasan, he is in shock because he should not have been able to unlock the chest. But it turns out that he was always able to do it since his survival depended on it. Kasan then realizes that he has not been maxing out his potential all this time. Katal then asks his party members how much they think the value of the chest is. Hayes reveals that the contents of the chest are enough to feed a family for at least a month while living luxuriously. Katal then tells Kasan to arrange the valuables, to which he quickly responds. While gathering the loot, Kasan's instinct as a thief wants to kick in, but hearing Katal's voice brings him back to reality. Shortly afterward, they run into a bunch of skeletons. Since there are 4 skeletons, Katal tells his teammates that he is going to handle 3 of the skeletons while leaving one to them. The trio accepts the task, and it dawns on them that they are about to get into a real fight. Kasan watches as the skeletons assemble themselves, and it creeps him out. The skeletons come charging at them, and the party members prepare to engage. They take on one of the skeletons while Katal holds down the other 3 so that they won't interfere in the fight. He watches as the trio fight the last skeleton. The trio uses coordinated attacks against the skeleton, trying to take it down. While they are fighting the one skeleton, Katal has casually crushed the other 3 without even realizing it. However, he is glad that he is witnessing how a proper party should move. He stands back to enjoy the fight between the skeleton and his party members. The trio soon realizes that Katal is testing them. It dawns on them that showing any sign of weakness means that they get to die. The fear of death pushes the trio to their limit, and after several attempts, they finally take down the skeleton. Judging from the fight he just watched, Katal realizes that the mercenaries who came through the snowfield 5 years ago are pretty decent fighters. The trio advances into the dungeon and soon gets to the 3rd floor where the skeleton monsters increase. However, the party had no issue going through since they had Katal leading the charge. Finally, they reach the deepest chambers of the dungeon where the final boss resides. They are met with a skeleton knight, and this shocks the party members. Fear grips them because a skeleton knight is a high-level boss and shouldn't be in such a dungeon. Katal asks if the skeleton knight is stronger than the ones they have fought, and they tell him yes. Hayes knows that only a warrior at a knight's level can stand a chance against a skeleton knight. She believes that they have no chance against the monster, and Katal asks them what will happen if they turn back without clearing the dungeon. They reply that the territory usually conducts an investigation, and once they find out that their reason is valid, they come to do the cleanup. Katal hears this and smiles. He immediately walks toward the skeleton knight as it already has his interest piqued. Katal is impressed with the fact that the skeleton can maintain its form without breaking apart like the others. The knight takes its pose and swings its sword, releasing a massive shockwave. Hayes senses the danger and immediately puts up a barrier to protect her teammates. Even with the shield that Hayes put up, the party still feels the effect of the skeleton's attack. This exhausts the party members, causing them to fall to the ground. Tyrannus is shocked that the knight only hit them once, and it caused that much damage. Just then, the skeleton knights charge at them with clear intentions of wiping them out. However, Katal stands there unfazed, and just as the knight reaches him, he lands a single punch that immediately crushes the skeleton knight. Kasan and the others are left in shock. Even when Katal asks them if they have cleared the dungeon, they are too stunned to speak. They find another treasure chest, and Katal asks Kasan if he can open it. Kasan comes clean, telling Katal that the treasure chest is protected with a high-level lock, and he can't disarm it with his skills. Kasan suggests that they ignore the treasure chest, but he hasn't finished his statement when Katal crushes the chest with his fist. Once again, the party members are left in disbelief. Katal then tells Kasan to clean up the treasures. Kasan walks toward the treasure chest while wondering how Katal is able to break it open. It is something he has never heard of in the past, but he wonders why Katal told him to unlock it when he could easily break it. After gathering the treasures, the party exits the dungeon. The moment they step out, the dungeon disappears, and Kasan explains that dungeons usually disappear once it is cleared. The dungeon only remains if there is a secret room, but since the dungeon they cleared disappeared, there seems to be no secret rooms. Katal hears about the secret room and adds it to his list of interesting things. They return to the guard post where the captain is shocked that the team has already cleared the dungeon. He then takes each member of the team into a waiting room to interview them one after the other. He asks Hayes if Katal can stay in the territory, and she says yes, since she didn't notice any problem with him. The captain, on the other hand, is not really concerned about the clearing of the dungeon, but about being able to screen out dangerous individuals. Tyrannus and Kasan also tell the captain the same thing about Katal. When Katal is asked about his party members, he praises them, talking about how they each contributed to the success of the mission. The captain is shocked at this because random party members who have entered the dungeon in the past don't end up praising each other. After looking at all the information, the captain tells them that they are free to enter the territory. He hands them each a permit, telling them that they will be expelled if they ever cause trouble. In addition to this, they are given a reward for clearing the dungeon. He urges them to divide the reward among themselves. Katal thanks the captain for the reward, and he turns to his party members, telling them that they are going to divide the reward equally. Hayes and the other two nervously tell Katal that they are fine with not receiving anything, but Katal insists since they all cleared the dungeon together. Realizing that Katal is not going to back down, the trio accepts. After sharing the reward, Katal suggests that they find a tavern where they can have fun. Kasan and the other two have no choice but to accept, but deep down, they just want to run away from this monster of a man. As the party members walk away, the captain of the guard thinks over what the party members told him. He admits that Katal is really strong since he was able to one-shot a skeleton knight. With what he can see, he figures out that Katal is at least on a knight's level of strength, and he is also not the typical barbarian. He considers Katal to be an anomaly among the barbarians and even humans. The captain realizes that things might be more serious than he thinks, and he decides to go report to the lord of the territory. The captain arrives at the lord's castle, where he meets the ruler in charge of the territory, Luke. The captain goes straight to the point, telling Luke that a barbarian has entered their territory. Luke asks the captain if he was the one who gave the barbarian permission to enter, and he says yes. He assumed that Katal was not going to be a problem, but after learning how strong he is, the captain believes that Katal might actually be a problem. Luke asks the captain how strong Katal is perceived to be, and he reveals that Katal took down a skeleton knight with just one hit. Even Luke is surprised when he hears this since he knows how strong skeleton knights can be. Looking at all the factors, Luke categorizes Katal as a first-rate warrior, and the captain agrees with this. The captain adds that there is the possibility of Katal being stronger than a first-rate warrior. After a quick thought over it, Luke tells the captain to summon Katal. The captain is shocked, and he asks Luke if he is going to be fine being around the barbarian. Luke tells the captain that having Katal roam their territory alone poses a big risk. Luke wants to physically assess the situation himself. When the captain points out how dangerous it is to have Katal in the same room, Luke reminds the captain that he has his own knight to protect him. Standing behind him is his fierce knight, and when Luke asks the knight what he thinks, the knight boastfully tells Luke that he has nothing to worry about since Katal is no more than a barbarian. Since he possesses great swordsmanship skills, which he learned from the Great Master, he believes that Katal stands no chance. Once Luke gets the assurance from his knight, he urges the captain to summon Katal because he would like to speak to him. Meanwhile, Katal and his party members are at a tavern. Katal is the only one eating and having fun since the other three are so nervous to even be in his presence. Katal talks about how good the food is, and he suggests that the trio eat whatever they want, assuring them that all the bills are on him. Even with this, the trio is still not comfortable. Katal then turns to Tyrannus, asking him what sort of holy power he uses since he didn't see him use any during the dungeon raid. Tyrannus comes clean, telling Katal that he is still in training, which is why his divine power hasn't awakened yet. Katal then moves from Tyrannus to Hayes. He asks her about the said god that she is serving. Hayes reveals that there is no temple that they can worship since the deity is not exactly popular. The deity is in control of lies and deception, which is why she is rejected by the masses. Hayes then throws in a strange question, asking Katal how strong he is. Katal is thrown back with the question, and he tells his party members that he doesn't have an idea since he has always been in the White Snowfield. Katal tells teammates that he is also curious to know how strong he is. Hayes then assumes that Katal is a first-rate warrior since he was able to take on the skeleton knight easily. Just then, the shop owner shows up, nervously telling the party members that the shop is about to close for the day. Katal apologizes for taking too long and assures the shop owner that they are leaving. After leaving the tavern, Katal asks his party members if they have any plans. In unison, the trio tells him that they are very busy. Katal is disappointed when he realizes that it is goodbye. He wishes that they would meet again someday, but the trio prays that they won't. Katal then retires at an inn, and he gets a comfortable bed. He has missed sleeping on a bed for so long since the snowfield is nothing but harshness. Katal has been surviving in the harsh environment of the snowfield, but now that he has found himself in civilization, he just wants to experience and have more feel for how things are. He plans to go on an adventure. On his list is the Elven Sanctuary, the Magic Tower, and even the Royal Capital is not off his list. Katal sleeps like a baby for the night, and he wakes up to the captain of the guard knocking on his door. He walks up to the captain, asking him if there is any problem. The captain coughs to pull his confidence together, and he then reveals that Katal has been summoned by the Lord of the territory. Katal is shocked to hear this, and he considers it an honor. He immediately agrees to meet the Lord. He tells the captain that he is just going to get his clothes so that they can leave, but the guard is utterly stunned. He didn't think it would be that easy to get Katal to follow him, and he started to wonder if he had come to the wrong place. Katal walks through the streets in amazement, since this is the first time he will get to see the territory during the day. Minutes later, they arrive at the castle, where the Lord of the territory is already waiting for them. Luke welcomes Katal and stretches his hand to shake Katal's. Surprisingly, Katal takes his hand and also bows to him in respect. Luke cannot believe that a barbarian bowed his head. Barbarians are known to never bow their heads because strength is everything to them. Luke tries to hide his shock and he tells Katal to take his seat. Katal sits down and he looks around at how beautiful everything is. Just then, he notices Luke's guard and how serious the dude is. Katal has always loved knights since he was a kid, but staring at the knight, he realizes that he is emitting serious killing intent. Luke calls Katal's attention back to reality when he tells him that there is a reason why he called him. Luke informs Katal that there are things he wants to confirm about him. Katal urges Luke to ask him anything he feels like. Luke asks Katal where he came from, and Katal replies that he came from the coldest place in the entire world, which is the White Snowfield. Hearing this, Luke confirms that Katal is truly a barbarian. Katal adds that the Snowfield is a very dangerous place. Luke then asks Katal how strong he is. Luke wants to know how threatening Katal's power is. Katal then tells Luke that he can't answer the question since he doesn't know the power rankings on the outside. Since his power cannot be ascertained, Luke suggests that Katal spar his knight. Luke promises that Katal will be rewarded if he agrees. Luke further adds that it is not going to be a life or death match, and Katal agrees to the proposition. He is excited that he wants to have a sparring session with a knight. And this is not just any knight, but a knight in the fantasy world. Katal cannot pass up the chance to witness what a knight can do firsthand. After Katal agrees to the deal, Luke realizes that Katal is just like the other barbarians who will not shy away from a fight. Katal and the knight then proceed to the arena where the match is going to take place. Once everything is in place, Luke tells the two to get down to the match. The knight boastfully tells Katal that he should consider himself a lucky person since he wants to witness his greatness. The knight soon realizes that Katal is relaxed and he is even smiling. This pisses him off and he charges toward Katal, promising to show him the difference in their skill level. He unleashes a sword skill that leaves Katal ultimately surprised. Katal tries to figure out the type of sword skill that the knight is using, but can't seem to. He initially thinks the 3 swords aiming for him are illusions, but he soon gets rid of that assumption. Even with how potent the skill is, Katal easily dodges. The knight considers this an impressive feat, but he still has more in his arsenal to unleash. Before he can make any more moves, Katal easily grabs his sword and breaks it. The knight is still trying to figure out what amazing power he just witnessed when he is grabbed by Katal. Katal punches him in the chest, shattering his armor and throwing him into the wall. With just a strike, Katal knocks Luke's best knight out of commission, leaving Luke himself stunned. Luke is left to wonder just how strong Katal can be. Katal turns to look at him and he asks if the duel is over, to which he says yes. Luke concludes that Katal's power is easily at a superhuman level since he was able to easily take down a high-level knight. However, he is left to wonder just how strong Katal is since he wasn't even trying. Without a doubt, he knows Katal has what it takes to tip the balance of the world. Realizing how dire the situation is, Luke believes that it is time to inform one of the very people that he knows who has gained the title of Swordsmaster. Speaking of the devil, the said Swordsmaster shows up in Luke's chambers. The Swordmaster is a respectable and feared old man named Cain. Cain takes an interest in what Luke has to say, and he demands further explanation. Luke stands up to greet the Swordsmaster out of respect, and he humbly welcomes him, even though he invited him on such notice. Luke then takes Cain to the room where the defeated knight is recovering. The knight apologizes to Luke for messing up, but Cain enters the room, telling the knight not to apologize, as he is to be blamed for everything. He believes that he didn't teach his disciple too well, which is why he lost to an unknown barbarian. Luke takes a better look at the knight and realizes that he didn't sustain any wounds on his chest, even though his armor was completely shattered. Luke then realizes that Katal must have shown restraint so as not to kill the knight. Cain also assesses the situation, and he reveals that Katal is not just a mindless barbarian. He believes that Katal has control over his strength, and he is even precise with it. Cain informs Luke that Katal has surpassed the level of a knight, and he is easily at a superhuman level. Luke then asks Cain how he perceives Katal. Cain admits that Katal might be super strong, but he is confident that there is no way Katal can reach him since he is a swordsmaster. Cain further looks at the knight's injuries and realizes that Katal can't use aura, but he is able to wield such crazy power. He considers this an impossible method with ordinary means, and he assumes that it is the way of the barbarians. Luke then tells Cain that Katal came from the Snowfield. Hearing this, Cain thinks Katal is a heteromorph, but he soon trashes the thought. Cain says Katal wouldn't have shown consideration for humans if he were a heteromorph. However, he wonders why a barbarian emerged from the Snowfield, and he also questions the timing of everything. Luke realizes that Cain is worried, and he asks him if there is anything wrong. Obviously, there is something wrong, but Cain tells Luke that he will hear of it later. Cain assures Luke that it is not something he needs to worry about in the meantime. He then asks Luke if Katal is still in the territory, and he says yes. Cain then decides to take it upon himself to confirm how strong Katal is. Katal is also given the promised reward for the duel. Luke also tells Katal that he is free to do as he wishes in the territory. Katal reveals that he doesn't have a plan laid out yet, but he would like to have an identity. He knows that entering dungeons in other territories can be an issue if he doesn't have an official identity. The captain of the guard then lets him know that Katal can get someone of high status to vouch for his identity. The other way he can get around this is to become a mercenary. Once he builds up his achievements as a mercenary, he will be recognized by the guild, and his identity will be acknowledged. The captain then reveals that Katal will be treated as a mere errand boy unless he raises his level as a mercenary. The captain assumes that Katal will go with the method of getting a sponsor to vouch for his identity, but Katal shocks him when he picks the option to be a mercenary. Since mercenaries fight monsters and take on other dangerous jobs, Katal is highly interested. He asks the captain where he can go to become a mercenary, and he points him to the mercenary guild. Mercenaries might sound cool on the outside, but they are basically the lowest on the status level. They often die in dangerous dungeons, and they are even subjected to dirty jobs. Because of this, the bottom tier of the mercenary society is always filthy and messy. At the mercenary guild hall, two mercenaries are seen fighting each other while their counterparts are watching. No one tries to separate them, and they are even betting on who is going to win in the end. The attendant, Rosa, is also complaining about how they have been receiving trash recruits. Among the said recruits are Tyrannus and Hayes. Rosa wishes that a handsome knight would just appear out of nowhere to come and register. Rosa's prayers are answered, but instead of a royal princess, Katal is the one who entered the guild. Katal's presence in the hall is immediately felt by everyone, and even the two dumbasses fighting are forced to stop their beef. Katal confidently walks up to Rosa, telling her that he would like to become a mercenary. Rosa is trembling as she faces Katal. She manages to ask Katal why he wants to become a mercenary, and he reveals that he wants to become one so he can get an official status. Rosa lets him know that he is going to need loads of achievements to move up, and Katal assures the assistant that he is fine with that. Rosa asks for his age and name. Katal only gives his name since he has no idea how old he is. Rosa fills in the details, and she decides to go with an approximate age for Katal. After this, Rosa presents Katal with his mercenary badge, telling him not to lose it. Without wasting time, Katal immediately asks to see the requests available since he would like to start immediately. Katal is shocked when Rosa brings out a list of F-rank requests for him. They are low requests like gathering of herbs, basement cleaning, night patrol, and a few. Rosa explains to him that he needs to take on F-rank requests and work his way up. Rosa is trembling while saying this, as she expects Katal to lash out, but to her surprise, Katal just picks one of the tasks. He tells Rosa that he would like to pick the herb gathering task. Katal asks Rosa where he is going to get the herb, and she lets him know that he will have to go outside the village. She shows Katal an image of the herb he is expected to gather. Katal collects the image and excitedly heads out to complete his task. Rosa is shocked at how chill Katal is. Katal arrives at the location where he is going to find the herbs. He realizes that they are herbs for treating injuries. Without grumbling or complaints, Katal happily gathers the herbs. He soon returns to the guild an hour later with a bag full of herbs. Rosa is stunned when she sees this since Katal managed to get even more than required. She assumes that Katal has been sent to destroy the herb field, but her perception of Katal changes when she realizes that Katal actually picked the herbs the right way. Katal didn't pull the herbs from the roots just like other mercenaries would do. Rosa thanks Katal for his hard work and then gives him a silver coin as payment for his work. Katal stares at the silver coin, which is not enough to buy a decent meal, but instead of getting mad, he is actually happy because this is his first hard-earned money. Katal smiles, and it is written all over his face that he is pleased. Katal tells Rosa that he is satisfied, and he asks to take on another task. Rosa is shocked that Katal is happy with the reward he got, which is the least thing that she expected. Since the day is still young, Katal wants to complete as many tasks as he can. Rosa had believed that Katal was normal, but with this she starts crying that Katal is just like other weird mercenaries that she has been recruiting. Katal continues taking on menial tasks, clearing the lists bit by bit. She visits a woman to help clean her warehouse. The woman is shocked by Katal's arrival, but Katal ignores her fear and gets down to business. After helping the woman, he jumps on the next task, which is street sweeping. Without hesitation, he picked up a broom and started sweeping. Meanwhile, he is being watched by Kane, who wonders why Katal is doing menial jobs. He knows Katal is pretty strong, and just by revealing his power, he can make a good living for himself. He can even change the power scaling of a kingdom, but he's doing menial tasks instead. Kane is even more surprised because Katal is doing the job with passion. After the day's job, Katal receives his pay, which is 15 silver coins. Katal happily accepts the reward, assuring Rosa that he will be back the next day to complete more tasks. The following day, Katal notices that everyone has their eyes on him. Even kids cry just by looking at Katal. Katal then heads to the library. He enters, and as usual, the receptionist is stunned. He asks to read, and the attendant provides him with books that will interest him. Kane is tailing him, but he is being careful not to get noticed by Katal. He hides behind a shelf to figure out what Katal is doing, and he wonders why a barbarian known to be crude and savage is reading books. Katal picks up some history books, where he finds out that the Empire won the battle 5 years ago. Since then, the Empire has become dominant and has taken over the Kingdom of Barkan as a vassal state. There are still some kingdoms to be conquered, but the Empire seems to be moving at a great pace to take over the world. After he is done looking into history, he decides to learn more about the fantasies of that world. The world possesses the dwarven tunnels, which are overflowing with expensive ones. There is also Pisarapia, the fairy village. Lagameria is the sky city home to the Celestials. He also learns in the book that Elfo Sagrado belongs to the elves, but no one has been able to find it. It is just as Marceria told him, but now he possesses the ability to go if he wants to. Just then, he realizes that there are other places like the White Snowfield. These are the demonic realms, and they don't entertain human presence. These realms are filled with very scary creatures, but 5 of these realms are the vast ones. One of them is the silent forest that dyes everything in stillness. There is the abyss that drags the world into evil. There is also the deep sea, but this place is strange enough for primates to still breathe. And there is the bottomless hole where nothing exists. Then there is the White Snowfield. Beings living in the demonic realms are regarded as the others. They are very strange and powerful, but humans are lucky that they can't cross over. Katal is surprised to learn about this. He knows the White Snowfield on itself is very large, and to think there are other places like it blows his mind. After gathering all the info that he can, Katal stands up to leave. He thanks the receptionist, who deep down is just glad that Katal is finally leaving. Katal heads back to the guild to ask Rosa if there are any assignments for the day. Rosa is happy to present him with the assignment sheet for the day. Meanwhile, Kane is still watching Katal, and he now sees him as a strange person. Kane decides that the best way to know more about Katal will be to meet him in person. Later that evening, Katal is on his way home when he is ambushed by Kane. Katal doesn't look surprised since he knows that Kane has been tailing him all day. On the other hand, Kane is shocked to his bones since he hid his presence with aura, which is supposed to make him invincible. Kane is left to wonder how Katal noticed him since people with the best instincts are not even supposed to catch a wind of him. Katal asks Kane what he wants from him, and before Kane can even talk, Katal jumps to the conclusion that the old man is a bandit. Katal waits a moment, but when he doesn't get a response from Kane, he cements the idea that Kane is a bandit. Kane subtly speaks out, telling Katal that he is not a bandit, and he wonders if Katal will back down if he learns that he is a Swordmaster. However, Katal is already fixated on the fact that Kane is a bandit who needs to be taken in. In fact, he is already thinking about the achievement he will be given by taking in Kane. Realizing that Katal is not going to back down, Kane decides to use the opportunity to test out his strength. Kane prepares to engage Katal, but suddenly, Katal vanishes and appears behind him. Katal tries to grab Kane, but in the last second, Kane manages to move. Katal smiles, acknowledging the fact that Kane is fast. On the other hand, Kane is terrified since he almost got caught. He knows that Katal would have caught him if he had moved a bit slower. However, he is more shocked that Katal is not using aura, but he is still extremely fast. Kane decides that he is no longer going to test Katal, but is going to go all out against him. Kane charges at Katal, but before he even gets the chance to do anything, Katal easily grabs him. Kane tries to move, but realizes that he is not just being grabbed, but the feeling he is getting is that he is thrown between rocks and can't move. Kane screams in pain while gnashing his teeth. He realizes that he can't even win in a contest of strength against Katal. Since it has come to this, Kain resorts to releasing his power. This sudden burst of force is enough for him to break free. Katal still doesn't feel threatened, but only smiles at the amazing technique that Kain used. He teases Kain, comparing him to a bandit and how they have somehow developed several techniques. Kain cannot believe that Katal is comparing his manifestation of mana to that of a bandit. Kain wonders how Katal is still standing since he just hit him with a massive force of mana that is enough to break through solid steel. Kain is blown away by the fact that there is no single scratch on Katal. At this point, Kain is worried since he has never seen anyone defend a mana attack with just their bare body. Katal, on the other hand, decides that it is time to finish their little play. Kain also prepares to draw his sword, but before he can, Katal reaches him and pushes back the sword with just a finger. This finally does it for Kain, as he cannot believe that Katal is stopping him from using his sword with just a finger. Kain is trying with his whole strength to pull the sword, but Katal is not even trying. Kain finally gives in, and Katal just grabs him like he is some baby. Katal is disappointed in how weak bandits are, not knowing that he just took down someone who is a Swordmaster. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time again. Moments later, Katal arrives at the security post, carrying Kain with him. The captain of the guards is shocked to see the Grandmaster being held like he is a baby. A lot is going through his head as he cannot ascertain if Katal attacked the Swordsmaster. He is totally blown away when Katal addresses Kain as a thief that he caught. Katal tells the captain that he is there to hand Kain over so he can increase his mercenary achievements. It starts to dawn on the captain what is currently happening. He realizes that the Swordsmaster, who is at the top of the food chain, got himself captured by a barbarian. To make it even worse, Katal captured him in the worst possible way. The captain finally pulls himself together and he tells Katal that the person he is holding is not a thief. Katal still looks confused when the captain says this. He gets more confused when the captain bows his head to Kain, revealing that he is the only Swordsmaster in the kingdom of Gehenthra. Katal still doesn't figure things out, as he believes that Swordsmaster is a title given to a thief. Katal starts arguing with the captain, telling him that the person he is holding cannot be a Swordsmaster since he attacked him to take his money. Meanwhile, Kain just remains silent as he is too embarrassed to even say anything. The captain and Katal continue arguing on whether the person Katal is holding is a wizard, using a spell to disguise himself. After a back and forth, Katal finally realizes that Kain is truly a Swordsmaster. The captain then leaves to report the situation to Luke. Luke is ultimately shocked when he learns that Kain lost to Katal. Katal and Kain are now sitting in a room while trying to avoid eye contact because of their embarrassing moment together. Luke enters the room to find such an awkward sight. Luke expected Kain to take on Katal, but he never thought he would lose. Luke comes to the bitter realization that Katal is stronger than the Swordsmaster. Luke tries to find comfort in the fact that Kain recently became a Swordsmaster. He believes that Kain's rank is low among other superhumans, which is why he easily lost to Katal. However, he is still baffled by the fact that Katal could take on someone who is at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Luke realizes that the two need some space to discuss, and he excuses himself from the room. Kain thinks about the whole thing and realizes how embarrassing it is for him. His pride is shattered, but there is no way he can even try to fix it. Kain finally breaks the silence in the room when he introduces himself. He mentions that he is a Swordsmaster, and Katal asks if Swordsmaster is his surname. He explains that anyone who reaches the title of being a Swordsmaster automatically loses their surname because it doesn't hold meaning again. Katal then asks him if the technique he used is particular to Swordsmasters. Kain realizes what Katal is talking about, and he tells him that he is wrong. What Katal saw Kain use was the manifestation of mysticism, which is also called aura. This immediately piques Katal's interest, and he wants to learn more. He asks Kain how he can use aura just like he said. Kain then explains that Katal would have to control aura and manifest it if he is to use it. Katal then asks if mysticism is mana, but Kain explains that mysticism is the embodiment of mystical energy itself. The art of handling mysticism as a swordsman is what births aura, but for a mage, it becomes mana. Katal smiles when he realizes that both swordsmen and mages have what it takes to handle mysticism. Just then, Katal asks Kain if he can teach him how to use mysticism since he is still new to the techniques of that world. Kain is shocked when he hears this, since Katal is obviously stronger than he is. Katal admits that he doesn't know anything about mysticism or swordsmanship. He is basically swinging his sword around with no skill. Kain hears this and tries to find solace in the fact that he didn't draw his sword when he fought Katal. He believed that he would have shown Katal how to properly wield a sword. Since he is trying to restore his shattered pride, Kain agrees to teach Katal how to properly wield a sword. Katal then mentions that he is weak because he can't use a sword. Kain cannot believe that Katal considers himself to be a weak person, but he goes with the flow, agreeing with what Katal said. Katal then continues by saying Kain would have had a better chance against him if he had allowed him to use his sword. He even believes that Kain would have won, but deep down, Kain knows that using his sword or not, he stands no chance against Katal's strength that he witnessed during their encounter together. However, he hopes to restore his pride by teaching Katal proper swordsmanship. Kain begins his lesson by telling Katal that his swordsmanship solely relies on illusion and reality. He asks Katal what he perceived when he fought his disciple, the Knight. Katal reveals that the Knight's sword strike split into 3, and each attack was real. Katal then figures out that Kain's style is one that focuses on technique and not brute strength. Kain affirms Katal's deductions, and he adds that swordsmanship is the art of merging the sword with aura to wield mysticism. Those who have reached the top of that art are called Swordmasters, just like him. Since Katal is a newbie, and he might not understand everything he is saying in theory, Kain decides that a practical example will be the best way forward. Kain makes his stance, and releases a sword slash imbued with his technique. The sword strike splits into 5 and damages the ground. Kain explains that the illusions might be fake, but his techniques make them real, which is something only his sword style can do. After seeing what Kain did and his technique, Katal tells the old man that he can also do it. As usual, Kain is shocked as he believes that Katal is talking nonsense. Kain has been working on his technique his entire life, and he is confident that Katal cannot just copy it from seeing it once. Katal realizes that Kain doesn't believe him, and he decides to show him instead. Kain brings out his axe, makes his stance, and swings his axe so fast that he creates a bigger level of damage than Kain's technique. Kain is left stunned by this. Kain is able to assess the situation, and he figures out that Katal might have copied his technique, but he was able to do that using his overwhelming strength and speed. Kain then tells Katal that all he did was swing his axe so fast, but there was no technique involved. Katal is confused, and he argues with Kain. Since the technique is meant to be used in combat, Katal believes that he managed to achieve the desired result even though he took the same route as Kain. Upon hearing this, Kain realizes that Katal is not actually wrong with his take. Kain wants to do something that Katal will not be able to, and he proceeds to show another technique. This time around, Kain splits his body into several parts, just like the way he did with the sword. Kain explains that the technique he used is body separation, which is created by controlling his aura to its last limit. Kain then asks Katal if he can also copy the technique he just showed him. Katal accepts the challenge and he steps back before moving his body so fast, just like Kain did. By doing this, he split his body just like Kain did and even left more devastating damage than Kain did. Kain is left in shambles, as he cannot believe that everything he worked for a lifetime was replicated in seconds. He falls to his knees in despair, and Katal teases him for being mentally fragile. However, Katal decides to lift Kain's spirit. He tells Kain that his swordsmanship is amazing. Katal admits that he can't do what Kain is doing because all he did was swing his axe really fast, but didn't imbue Kain's technique in it. Katal admits that he can never reach the top level of mysticism that Kain has gotten to. After hearing this from Katal, Kain pulls himself together with the belief that his technique is unique to him, and him alone. He realizes that his swordsmanship is perfect. The only problem is that he went up against someone who is way out of his league. Kain is still confused by the fact that Katal is moving so fast without using aura. This is something that should be beyond human limits, but Katal is doing it so easily. Just then, Katal asks for something really shocking. He begs Kain to teach him how to properly use his technique. Kain agrees, and he tells Katal that to properly use his technique, he needs to learn how to control aura. However, to do this, Katal will have to figure out how the mystery works. Kain says there is no mage or swordsman who can get to the top without having a good understanding of the mystery. However, there are a few exceptions, and these are those who believe in gods. Their belief helps them bypass this compulsory factor. Katal then figures out that divine power is different from other powers. Kain reveals that those with divine power get their powers directly from the gods. Kain further explains that mystery is the mysterious power within humans. However, it is up to humans on how they use it. Trying to explain what the mystery is, Kain reveals that there are 5 stages. The basic stage is the detection of mystery, which allows the sensing and realization of mystery. Katal then asks if everyone can feel the mystery, but Kain says no. The mystery can only be felt by gifted people. Those who are able to sense the mystery are called third-rate. Just like Melina explained to him 5 years ago, Kain explained again. Kain tells Katal that there are 5 levels, and these are the third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, superhuman, and hero levels. Kain then adds that the power gap between each level is significantly huge. Since Katal has no sense of mystery whatsoever, Kain wants them to start with the first stage, which is mystery detection. Kain tells Katal to max out his senses so he can feel everything around him. From the touch of the earth to the shifting in the wind, Kain tells Katal to feel everything. Katal sits down to meditate and follow all of Kain's instructions. But after a few minutes, Katal comes clean, telling Kain that he doesn't feel anything. Kain is shocked to hear this since he believes that someone as strong as Katal would easily be able to sense it. Kain starts to wonder if Katal is an exception because of where he came from. Kain tells Katal that it might not be easy for him to release the mystical right from the start. Kain offers to push power directly into him and guide him along the path of mysticism. Katal is immediately excited when he hears that Kain is about to transfer aura into him. He urges the old man to get down to it quickly. Kain stands up and stands behind Katal to get started. Just as he touches Katal, Kain is stunned. Instead of feeling a body, what he feels is solid rock. He cannot believe that human muscles can be so compressed that they feel like solid rock. Katal notices that Kain is not doing anything, and he calls his attention back to him. Kain then begins the process of transferring aura into Katal. He plans to awaken the dormant mysticism in his body. Kain is confident that this is not a difficult process, and he can easily get it done. Just then, Kain realizes that he has hit a brick wall. In fact, Kain figures out that it is worse than he thought. In trying to reach Ketal's mysticism, Kain feels like he is in a deep sea with no end in it. Kain finally comes to the conclusion that there is no way he can awaken Katal's mysticism. Katal asks if he has no talent, but Kain assures him that it is not the case. Kain tells Katal that he will need to find his own path and awaken his dormant power by himself. Kain informs Katal that he couldn't find the path in his body. Katal is worried that he cannot sense mysticism at all, but Kain lets him know that this is not the case. Kain tells Katal that he couldn't confirm the basis of mysticism in his body. Kain puts it into perspective for him, telling him that his body is exceptional. He tried filling it with aura, but it didn't reach anywhere. Even Kain is blown away because this is the first time he will be witnessing such. Katal is disappointed in the entire process, as he now believes that he might not be able to use mysticism, since a Swordmaster couldn't help him. Kain then suggests that Katal visit other Swordmasters who are better at handling aura, or he can even visit the magic tower. Kain apologizes that he couldn't help, but Katal doesn't take offense. He assures Kain that he might not have gotten his desired result, but he was able to learn a lot from their time together. Katal thanks Kain for his help, leaving Kain in a state of mystery. He wonders why Katal is so different from the other barbarians that he has met in the past. Kain then tries to play his hand. He asks Katal if he is interested in settling down in the kingdom. Kain tells Katal that he would be given a title if he pledges loyalty to the kingdom. But without thinking twice, Katal refuses the offer. He tells Kain that he is not interested in pledging his fealty to anything or anyone. Katal basically wants to be a free bird so he can do whatever it is he wants. Kain knows how powerful Katal is, and he wishes that he could get him to support the kingdom so that they can have a chance against the Empire. Kain reminds Katal that he will be given a title, but Katal sternly maintains his stance, and Kain immediately backs off. Katal then thanks Kain for his assistance, assuring him that he won't forget how he tried to help him. After their conversation, Kain walks through the hallway thinking about how foolish he is that he thought he could control Katal into doing what he wants. With what Kain has seen, he is confident that no one can influence Katal. He is a man of his own and will only do what he wants. Kain believes that Katal might even be more dangerous than the other barbarians who came from the demonic realm, since Katal came from the White Snowfield. Kain then holds a meeting with Luke. He tells him about the Emperor's desire to conquer the demonic realm, which has claimed the lives of several scouts. Kain urges Luke to be prepared in case he gets an Imperial summons in the future. Kain mentions how a lot of strange things have been happening. From the Emperor trying to conquer the demonic realm to the news of the demons making a move, Kain reveals that dungeons are appearing at an abnormal rate, and it seems the demonic realm is slowly seeping into the human world. Kain knows that something mysterious is happening, and with the way it is going, he is confident that it is not something that would benefit humanity. To top it all off, a strange barbarian has walked into their midst. However, Luke and Kain are relieved that Katal doesn't appear to be an enemy yet. Katal continues with his day-to-day activity, and one morning, he decides to figure out why people are always staring at him. Katal comes to the conclusion that everyone is always staring at him because he is not wearing a proper outfit. Since everyone is wearing proper civilized clothes and he is wearing animal hides, Katal assumes that they consider him a weirdo. However, Katal is basically misunderstanding the entire situation and couldn't comprehend that his presence alone causes people to stare at him. Katal then heads to a clothing store to try and get himself a new outfit. As expected, the shop owner almost fainted when Katal entered the shop. Katal wants to buy himself a new outfit, but the shop owner tells him he doesn't have anything that can fit him. He then offers to make him a custom outfit. Katal agrees to the shop owner's offer, but at the same time, the shop owner is worried that Katal will just kill him if the outfit he makes doesn't suit his taste. Katal leaves the shop, promising to come back once the outfit is done. On his way to the guild, Katal finds a weird glowing bead on the road. He picks it up with the intention of asking Rosa about it. He arrives at the guild, and he shows Rosa the bead. Rosa picks it up to get a better look. Just by touching it, Rosa reveals that it was carefully polished by someone. As she continues to dig into it, Rosa suddenly zones out. Katal is quick to notice this, and he snaps her out of it. Katal asks her if she is fine, and she says yes. Katal lets her know that she was weirdly drawn to the bead, but Rosa didn't even know this. Rosa then mentions the strange energy coming from the bead. She wants to appraise it, but Katal tells her not to. He lets her know that he will dig into the bead by himself. Katal then asks Rosa if there are job requests that he can work on. As usual, she brings out the list of tasks that Katal can easily pick from. That night, Katal lies on his bed, reminiscing about the fulfilling day that he had. His attention comes back to the bead as he wonders what it is. While staring at the bead, he suddenly hears a voice from inside the bead. The voice gives Katal instructions on where to go. Excited to see what or who is behind the bead, Katal leaves his room. He soon finds himself in a dark cave, and upon entering, he can hear the voice getting excited that another sacrifice has come to him. The voice is glad that he managed to get his hands on a barbarian, as this would be sufficient for what he wants to do. Sitting in the dark cave is a dark sorcerer, talking about resurrection. There was a time in the past when many kingdoms came crashing down. The person behind this chaos was an evil sorcerer who manipulated everyone by messing with their emotions. He got so far with his evil doings until he was discovered and the heroes defeated him. Before he was defeated, he managed to transfer his soul into a life vessel, thus becoming a lich. With this, he achieved immortality that will remain until his life vessel is broken. Since he became a lich, the evil sorcerer has been planning his resurrection. To resurrect himself, he needed lots of human sacrifices, and to get this, he lured in people. His goal is to create a mana core that would be needed for his resurrection, so that he can once again conquer the world with his power. His plan was going smoothly. But now, Katal has somehow entered his hideout. The Lich wonders why a barbarian is in the area since they rarely come down from the north. It turns out that the Lich placed a spell on the bead to attract those who can't see the mystical presence. Since Katal has somehow wandered into his domain, he is confident that Katal can't feel the presence of mystery. Katal opens a giant door and steps into the room where the Lich is waiting. Katal is shocked to see a Lich right in front of him. He has always been fascinated by Liches as they are considered to be villains in the fantasy worlds. The Lich realizes that Katal doesn't seem to be affected by the bead, and he is forced to ask him who he is. It finally dawns on Katal that the Lich has been using the beads to lure people into his hideout. The Lich remains confused at what is happening since he can't sense any mystical presence in Katal. Since Katal is not affected by his charm, the Lich assumes that he is carrying a mental defense artifact. He adds that the artifact must be a high-grade one since he can't sense it, but he wonders how a barbarian is able to get his hands on such a thing. Katal then tells the Lich that he is not with any artifact. The Lich doesn't believe this and decides that it is time that he crushes Katal with force. The Lich summons his minions, which are skeletons. The skeletons run at Katal, but it all ends the same way it did in the dungeon. Katal takes out the skeletons with just one hit. The Lich is surprised at this, but decides to raise more skeletons to take on Katal. He orders his minions to cut Katal down, but all it takes for Katal to take down the skeletons is nothing but a clean punch. In no time, Katal takes out every skeleton that the Lich sends his way. In fact, Katal is disappointed because the skeletons are not stronger than the ones in the dungeon. He believed that the Lich would at least control the skeletons with his power. The Lich is left in total shock, and he decides that it is time to finally crush Katal. Using his amazing power, the Lich raises a skeleton knight. Katal is excited to see another skeleton knight in action. He wonders if the skeleton knight will operate just like the one he fought in the dungeon. The skeleton knight runs at Katal, and Katal meets the skeleton halfway with a punch to the middle part of its body. Even though Katal landed a sure hit on the skeleton knight, it managed to survive. Katal is glad that the skeleton knight is much better than the one he fought in the dungeon. The Lich is maxing out his mana to make sure the skeleton knight remains functional. The skeleton makes another run at Katal, and this time, it is faster. This time, Katal aims for the skeleton's head and crushes it with a single hit. The Lich is ultimately stunned, leaving him to wonder just who Katal is. He has assessed Katal and realizes that there is no sign of mysticism coming from him. In addition to this, he doesn't think Katal is using any artifact because he would have sensed the mana from it. The Lich comes to the bitter realization that Katal is relying on his brute strength. The Lich admits that Katal is special, and because of this, he decides to take on Katal himself. The Lich unleashes his dark aura, which envelops the entire area. Katal is amazed, but the Lich mistakes his amazement for fear. The Lich tells Katal to prepare himself to be crushed since he wandered into his domain. Katal argues that he didn't wander, but was invited by the orb he saw. He blames the Lich for this, since he was the one who spread the orb everywhere. The Lich then shuts Katal up, telling him that he is the great sorcerer, Kartos. He once brought the kingdoms to their knees, and he is ready to do it again. He plans to use Katal as the cornerstone for his resurrection. Kartos then hits Katal with a spell that manipulates human emotions. This spell draws out the negative feelings in humans, shattering their minds in the process. Once Kartos believes that Katal is under his influence, he prepares to take Katal into his study so that he can know more about him. Kartos orders one of his skeletons to subdue Katal, but suddenly, Katal kicks the skeleton into the air, shattering it. Kartos almost pees his pants when he sees this. Kartos doesn't want to believe that Katal was able to fight off his mind control spell, which should have worked perfectly. Katal is disappointed in Kartos for sending his minions to their deaths without trying to fight. Katal tells Kartos that his tactics are pretty boring. Katal's words pierce Kartos' soul and body. Since humans are creatures that are driven by emotions, Kartos believes that the spell he used on Katal should have worked. Katal then suggests that Kartos use fireball magic instead of mind control. This gets Kartos mad as he believes that his magic is superior to the type of magic Katal is suggesting that he use. Kartos then resorts to a powerful spell. He consumes the entire room in the spell just to make sure that Katal is completely engulfed. Kartos also used all of his mana to make sure that the spell was successful. He is confident that no matter how strong Katal is, he definitely fell to his last attack. When the dust clears, Kartos freezes in fear when he sees Katal standing in front of him, completely fine. Katal even mocks him, asking him if he has tried everything that he wants to. Kartos is left in a state of shock and horror since the spell he used is the most powerful spell in his book. This is a spell that makes heroes bow down, but somehow Katal is still standing. Katal walks up to Kartos, telling him how disappointed he is. He unsheathes his axe as he tells Kartos that it is his turn to bring in the heat. Kartos then starts assuming the wrong things. He says Katal came specifically to kill him. He believed that the Empire managed to track him down, and they sent Katal to annihilate him. Apparently Kartos heard that there is a facility in the Empire where they train people to be more brutal. Kartos believes that this is where Katal came from, as he has been specially designed to take him down. However, Kartos is not ready to back down. He plans to kill Katal and take over the Empire using his body. Kartos' essence then flows from inside his life vessel and settles into Katal's body in an attempt to take over his body. He plans to use Katal's body for the rest of his life, but suddenly, Kartos realizes that he is in a mess. Inside Katal's mental realm, Kartos finds nothing related to the Empire, and to make things worse for him, he doesn't have a space to plant his roots inside Katal's mind. Not being able to sustain himself inside Katal's mind, Kartos fades away. Katal stands there confused and disappointed that Kartos didn't offer him more of a fight since he is supposed to be the final form of a mage. Katal concludes that the liches in this fantasy world are not that impressive. Since he has defeated Kartos, Katal decides to pack the rewards in the room. He picks up Kartos' staff and he removes the gem from the staff. Katal plans to keep the gem to himself and not tell anyone. He also finds a jug that appears to be Kartos' life vessel. He plans to take it back to the guild so that Rosa can appraise it. After Katal is done gathering all the rewards in the room, he prepares to leave, but he keeps getting the idea that something is off. He decides to take a second look around the room, and this is when he discovers a secret chamber. He breaks through the barrier and enters the chamber. Inside the chamber are people who have been captured by Kartos. However, they all remained motionless, mute since Kartos' spell is in effect. Katal tries to get them to move, but his attempts fail. Since he doesn't know how to help them, he decides that he will return to the guild and inform them about his discovery. Moments later, Katal shows up at the guild, holding the rewards he found in Kartos' chamber. Rosa is excited to see Katal, as she is expecting him to request for tasks, but Katal reveals that something came up. Rosa becomes curious, and Katal reveals that the situation that came up is about the orb that he found the day before. He explains everything to Rosa, who immediately doubts his story. Apparently, there are only 5 liches in the world, and she is not confused that one of them would choose to settle close to their territory. Since Rosa doesn't want to believe him, Katal shows him the life vessel he brought with him and suggests that she appraise it. Rosa appraises the life vessel, and it finally dawns on her that Katal is telling the truth. Katal explains further, telling Rosa that there are still people in Kartos' chambers. He lets her know that he couldn't help them, which is why he left them there. This is when it dawns on Rosa that there have been cases of missing persons lately, and they have not been able to find any of them. Rosa realizes that the situation is even more delicate than she thought. She immediately reaches out to the captain of the guard, who runs over on short notice. Katal assures the captain that there is nothing to worry about since he has taken care of the situation. The captain is horrified when he learns that Katal went up against the evil Kartos. Everyone knows Kartos as the magician who almost destroyed the world 100 years ago. He developed a spell that messes with emotion, and he used this to cause chaos everywhere. The captain cannot believe that Kartos somehow became a lich, but he is even more surprised when Katal says Kartos is not powerful. Katal also mentions that Kartos self-destructed, but didn't mention the part where he was trying to take over his mind, which is why he self-destructed. The captain wants a detailed explanation, but Katal says there is nothing more to say about it. After hearing everything Katal has to say, the captain heads to the Lord's castle to report to him. The captain explains everything to Luke and also includes the testimony of the already rescued victims from Kartos' chamber. Luke is worried that the Empire might dispatch investigators to check out the territory if they find out that a lich has settled in the territory. He is more worried that everything is going south when Cain is not available. Luke then decides to send a message to the kingdom. Luke and the captain consider the territory lucky because they would have fallen victim to Kartos' wrath if Katal had not discovered his hideout. Luke knows that Katal's deeds deserve an award, but he is not sure if his territory has the resources to provide such an award. The next day, Luke wakes up to the news of something shocking. He is informed that the heretic inquisitor of the sun god, who goes by the name Aquaz, has just shown up in the territory. Luke is shocked to hear this. In panic, he starts to question why Aquaz is in the territory. Later that day, Luke meets with Aquaz. Aquaz thanks Luke for the hospitality, even though she didn't inform him beforehand. Apparently, Aquaz is the youngest to hold the title of the Sun God Inquisitor. She took down 7 warlocks who made pacts with demons, and she by herself stopped a large-scale ritual from happening. She is currently the most formidable Inquisitor on the continent. To show how influential she is, even the Empire bows to the Sun God's order whenever she is present. She basically transcends every other rank on the continent, leaving Luke to wonder why someone of such status would come to his territory. Aquaz reveals that she heard some interesting things about the territory. Luke assures Aquaz that they have resolved the issue of the dungeon, and he uses this to figure out if she knows about the Lich or not. He is relieved when he realizes that Aquaz has no idea about the issue of the Lich. Luke then asks the Inquisitor why she is in the territory. Aquaz reveals that she is there to speak to Luke about the Oracle. However, she wants confirmation about the things happening in the territory before she divulges what the Oracle said. Luke then explained everything to Aquaz, including the presence of Katal in the territory. He also mentions the fact that Katal defeated the Lich, who was Kartos. He shows Aquaz Kartos' life vessel as proof that he is not lying, and this is enough to get the lady's attention. Things are more serious than she anticipated, and he immediately demands to see Katal. Aquaz also learns from Luke that Katal is from the White Snowfield. She is surprised that something from the demon realm has suddenly decided to emerge into the human world. In addition to the fact that Katal defeated Kartos, Aquaz believes that she must have been sent to the territory because of Katal. Meanwhile, Katal is in his room, staring at the jewel he took from Kartos' chambers. He figures that it is some sort of artifact that uses magic, but he doesn't know much about it. He plans to ask any mage he finds about the artifact. Just then, the captain shows up at his door, telling him that Aquaz would like to see him at the church. Katal wastes no time getting himself ready. He joins the captain, and together, they head to the church of the sun god. The captain leaves Katal at the entrance, telling him that someone will guide him once he enters the building. He enters and is welcomed by 3 sisters. They offer to take him to the room where Aquaz is waiting for him. Katal meets Aquaz and they get the introductions out of the way. Katal takes a good look at Aquaz and realizes that she is young but skilled. He smiles after making this deduction, and Aquaz notices, leaving her to wonder why Katal is smiling. Katal then asks the lady why she invited him. Aquaz reveals that she invited Katal because of his encounter with Kartos, the evil one. Aquaz doesn't seem to believe Katal's story, but Katal lets her know that he has no way of proving what he saw and encountered. Aquaz then suggests that they allow the sun god to observe their conversation. Katal is confused by what the lady meant, and she explains that any lie will trigger a negative reaction. Katal realizes that Aquaz is talking about a divine lie detector. Deep down, Aquaz believes that Katal will reject the proposition since this is the way of the barbarians. She then tells Katal that he is free to decline, but Katal shocks her when he reveals that he has no interest in declining. This is a chance for Katal to witness the power of a god, and he is not about to pass it up. He excitedly tells Aquaz that they should start with the process. Aquaz asks him if he is bothered about the suggestion, but he says no. Katal says he is going to get a chance to see a god watch over him, so it is a good deal for him. Katal assures Aquaz that he has nothing to hide and he hasn't told a single lie from the start. Once they are both in agreement, Aquaz proceeds. She recites a chant to invite the sun god to observe the conversation between her and Katal. A bright light appears from above, radiating upon Katal. Katal feels the god's presence from beyond the light, creating different emotions in him. When everything calms down, Aquaz is relieved that there was no negative reaction. She then tells Katal that the real conversation is about to begin while the sun god observes. She lets him know that all lies are forbidden, and Katal assures her that he is ready and on board. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.